Please join me in welcoming back to the stage, Jared James.
All right, guys, welcome back. We have another great session for you, talking about something that is probably not talked about enough in a tangible way, and that is culture. And I am loving the idea that I get to bring our team leader coach, Rick Fuller, who actually coaches our coaches that do team leaders. So this should be a good session here, guys. Before we do that, let me tell you a little bit about Rick. Rick has led the Rick Fuller team to producing over $100 million in annual sales, nearly 1,000 five-star reviews from satisfied customers, and has successfully established multiple locations throughout the San Francisco Bay and Sacramento County areas. The Rick Fuller team has earned Zillow's distinction as the #1 real estate team in the San Francisco Bay Area and Sacramento County for most recent sales. In 2020, the Rick Fuller team was recognized the Best Small Business Award by the state of California. In addition to leading his team, Rick is a board member of a community nonprofit organization, an economic development commissioner, and is the team leader coach for Jared James Enterprises, my company, obviously. Rick has been married to his wife, Jennifer, for over 20 years and has 3 amazing daughters. And since 2000, the Rick Fuller team has raised support, awareness, and over $1.2 million for foster and homeless kids in their community. Guys, wherever you are, whatever place you're sitting in, do me a favor and give a nice virtual hand for my friend Rick Fuller.
Hey, thank you, Jared. What a kind introduction. Appreciate that.
Oh, no problem, man. How you doing there? How's it going out there?
Hey. Oh, it's doing great. The smoke has lifted. The bay is beautiful.
Has it really? The smoke has lifted?
It has. We had 28 days consistently of smoke in the air, making it difficult to go out and do about anything. And it's just now lifted in the last week. So we're outside. We're loving it. We're enjoying it. And great to be here with you at the Jared James Advance. You know, I was talking to you previously, and I'm convinced that this advance may be more important than any other advance in the life of a real estate agent because so much has happened in 2020, and this can help them get their business back on track and help them advance their career.
I agree, man, and that's why I'm excited to do this with you here as well. We were originally going to do this with you actually on here, on the stage here with me, but there's all those travel restrictions and everything. So regardless, man, I'm glad we found a way to do this, and I want to jump right into it.
We have a lot to cover.
So often, man, we understand what, culture is in our communities. However, it's not clearly defined what culture is in the terms of business. What is team culture and what is it not?
Jared, it's a great question. You know, what it's not is it's not a vibe. It's not a sense or kind of a feeling that you have within your organization. It's not something that you go and get. Like you don't order it on Amazon in 3 to 5 days. It doesn't arrive to your business. It is very purposeful and it's very intentional. If I were to use a metaphor, I'd tell you it's much like that of a fingerprint. It forms from the inside out. It's very unique and different for every single person, every single team. And probably most importantly, Jared, it becomes your identity in your organization. It's like it's what people know you for. And in real estate, we've been known for helping the consumer buy and sell real estate. And what ends up happening when you have a great team culture, you don't become just simply the best place to do real estate, but you become the best place to work in your community. Yeah. And that begins to make a shift in your organization, closing the revolving door that's constantly, people are coming in, people are going out. It begins to create kind of a magnetism to your organization, and it's absolutely critical. I'm convinced, Jared, that culture is so important, and I would define it in business and within real estate, within the context of real estate team. It's the alignment of all the things that matter in your organization. It's the alignment of your values. It's the alignment of your mission or purpose. It's the alignment of your value proposition as an organization. It's like, why does somebody hire you versus somebody down the street? It's the alignment of the behaviors that you want to convey to the consumer and you want them to write about online. Yeah. It's your goals, and probably just as importantly, it's you create profitability in the life of the consumer, the team member, and the team. It's a win-win-win when you get culture right.
I love it. I love it. And that's probably a perfect segment into my next question. Your team was recognized by the state of California recently as the best small business in your community, which is quite impressive, by the way. Congratulations. That's awesome. What impact does team culture have on creating a great place to work?
Jared, I think it's the biggest factor. I think it's like a magnet. It creates a pull that instead of a push. You and I've talked to people and they're like, hey, I need to go do a recruiting push. I need to go bring on team members. I need to do a recruiting push. When you have great team culture, it doesn't create a push. It creates a pull. It's an attraction. It's like a magnetism to your organization. It also causes the organization to stick together. And if there's ever a time where an organization needs to stick together, it's right now in 2020, right? I mean, business has been just crazy.
Yeah.
Whether it be the lack of supply, the massive demand for real estate, all the COVID implications, it causes the organization to stick together. And probably most importantly, Jared, is it creates retention. It's like a magnet. It just holds people to the organization. It causes like a sticky factor and they stay with you. I'm convinced today that people don't leave companies, they leave bad cultures.
That's such a good point. I've heard you talk about before, and you usually use a metaphor to clearly define the culture on your team. Can you kind of just let everybody know what that metaphor is and how does it work?
Yeah, Jared, General Colin Powell used to make this statement, and it's great leaders are great simplifiers. So in order to remember things, I just try to use a metaphor or 5 points or something. And so to articulate the culture, we use the metaphor of a tree. And we call it the culture tree. Right. And here's how it works. The soil within your culture tree represents, the values of your organization. Like, what are the values of your organization? John Maxwell wrote a book many years ago, and he said there are no company ethics. The premise of the book is that people join the team with their ethics, their values, their priorities, and that becomes the ethics and values and priorities of the organization. So you defining the soil of your organization is critically important because, we're in the San Francisco Bay Area. We talked about that. And it's very diverse geographically. It's diverse in a lot of ways, but it's also diverse geographically. So in the valley, we have a lot of orange trees. On the coast, we've got a lot of coastal redwoods. And what's amazing about all of those trees, no matter where they're at, they reach their fullest potential with great soil. And that's exactly how it is for our team leaders and for the real estate teams, like the trees, the organizations that reach the greatest potential, they have the greatest soil. They have the greatest soil and that helped them reach that potential. But then we look and say, well, what are the roots of the organization? And we would parallel the roots to your mission, your purpose. Like, why do you exist as an organization? What's interesting about the roots is that from the roots, everything is impacted, right? From the trunk to the branches to the fruit, even the seed, all of it's fed from the roots. And so every decision an organization makes has to be made on purpose, has to be made intentional, and has to be in alignment with what they said the mission of the organization is. When you look at the mission of an organization, the purpose behind it. Why do they come in the morning? Why do they exist? What are they all about in the organization? That's really what the soul. That's really what the roots of the organization is all about. Then we parallel it to a trunk, and we take this powerful mission that whatever your team has, and we parallel that to getting it through to the branches, to the leaves, and eventually to the fruits. And you need a unique value proposition. So our trunk becomes, what's your unique value proposition? For us, Jared, here in the Bay Area, we're convinced that we can go further together than we could ever do individually. That a team, everyone achieves more with a team. We're so convinced in that is our unique value proposition, is that we're going to operate as a team. And as a team within our organization, we're going to make sure that we hire people that have really 3 untrainable dimensions. And they're very simple. We want to make sure that people are hungry, that they have an internal drive, that they get up in the morning, they want to learn, they want to connect with people, they want to serve. We want to make sure that people are humble. Like, these are our team members. We want to be humble because humble people are coachable people. People that are arrogant, people that are
right.
egotistic, they're not willing to learn. And then we want to make sure that people are people smart. Like the team members we bring on, they don't need to be IQ smart. They don't need to be mathematicians, but they do need to be people smart. They need to have a higher EQ than often IQ. They just need to be able to connect with people. They need to be able to sit across from the table with somebody who wants to list their home, sit across from a conference room, somebody who's going out on a buyer appointment or on a Zoom call, and they need to be able to make a connection.
Right.
And I have found that you cannot artificially create this. Like people either are hungry, humble, or smart. That those things either exist or they don't. They're not trainable qualities. We can train somebody how to write an offer, how to search the MLS, how to do all those things. You can't teach them how to connect with people. You can't teach them how to build a relationship. They either can do it or they can't.
So true.
Now, we didn't invent that, Jared. That was written about in a book called The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni. Powerful read. By the way, all of our team leader students read that book because we just believe that your team is the result of the team members that you bring on. Like that becomes the collective total of your team. Then we look at, the organization, we look at the branches. Okay, so let's talk about the branches. The branches we define as the collective behaviors. It's what we want the consumer, what we want the buyer, the seller, the vendor, the co-op agent to say about our team. On our team, we have 5 C's. These are things we want them to write about in the reviews. We're so intentional about it that everything we do is designed to get the consumer, the vendor, the buyer, seller, even the co-op agent to make these comments that, wow, these people have character and they're people of competence and they're really good at communicating. They have capacity. They're collaborators. They work together well as a team. We try to get the consumer, they don't have to use those exact terms, but we want some synonyms that are used throughout their reviews based on the experience that they were provided as a team. Then we have our fruit, and the fruit is the results of the organization. Like, what are we actually aiming for? What are we trying to accomplish? A certain tree has a certain kind of fruit. Your real estate team should have a goal, should be result oriented. It shouldn't be something like, hey, we'll just do whatever we decide to do.
That's right.
It should be very purposeful. There's a story that I think parallels this well. Back in the 60s, when JFK took office, NASA had dozens of goals. I mean, they had lists of goals and objectives. And JFK gave a speech in the early 60s, and he said, listen, we're going to take a man from Earth, we're going to put him on the moon, and we're going to bring him back safely, and we're going to do it by the end of the decade. That's what he said. And that became the one wildly important goal. We call it a WIG goal, wildly important goal of NASA, to take a man from Earth, put him on the moon, and bring him back safely and do it by the end of the decade. They scrapped all the other goals that they have, and they simply focused on that one. And in 1969, that happened when a man walked on the surface of the moon. Now, we're not walking on the surface of the moon. We're not trying to build that. But I will tell you, there is a power in having less goals and very clearly defined goals. We use a simple formula in team leader coaching. We make all of our goals in this simple formula: from X to Y by when. I mean, literally, that's what JFK did back in the 60s. It worked. That's what we're doing. We have high-hanging goals. These take a little longer on the branch to mature and to ripen and be ready. Those might be our 5-year goals. And then we have low-hanging fruit goals, and that's what we're trying to accomplish this week. We know exactly what we need to do as a team. What does our lead and lag measures look like? What does our production look like this week that's going to help us accomplish those goals? And we have this high and low-hanging fruit goals, and these goals allow us to be results-oriented. It's not enough to show up every day. You need to be focused on what the actual purpose of the organization and what the results that we're trying to accomplish.
Good stuff, man.
Let me go to the last one, Jared, and it's what I call the seed. Because once you've got a good tree and it produces healthy fruit, and the fruit that you've been very, very intentional in building, in growing, you've really got to make sure that you reinvest some of that seed back into the ground. And for some real estate agents, that might mean keeping what we call base camp small. It might be managing their expenses so they don't consume all of the seeds, and then one day they look out at their orchard, they got no trees left.
That's right.
They just kept consuming them. And I think that the real estate seed in your organization, it's got to be profitability. And profitability first and foremost for the consumer. Like the buyer and seller that hires you and hires your team and hires your team member ought to say, as a result of this experience, I am better as a result of it. There's profit in, and that profit could be a smoother experience. That profit could be, we actually sold the property for higher if they're listing it, or we got them a really good deal on the purchase. Maybe we had more inventory available. But there should be benefit. There should be profit to the consumer, to the buyer and seller. There should be profit to the team member. The team member ought to do better as a result of a well-orchestrated and designed culture tree. The team members should be able to grow and excel and benefit as a result of the team being organized and putting all of these main things in alignment through something like a culture tree. And frankly, it ought to be beneficial and profitable for the team so that they can reinvest in new markets, new opportunity. The cheese is constantly being moved. That's a book written by Ken Blanchard many, many years ago describing, hey, when the market moves, you move with the market. You always say it this way, Jared, we don't drive. We're not in the driver's seat. We're in the passenger seat of the market. And so we need to change, and you got to have the capacity, the capital, and the resources to do it. So you got to build an organization, grow an organization, a healthy culture tree that allows it to be profitable.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So a great culture begins at the roots with a powerful why. And I'm curious for you, especially teaching a topic like this to all the people that are watching, what is for you guys your why and your mission?
Jared, my wife and I were married about 20 years ago. We went and bought our first home. I was in my mid-20s. It was a fantastic decision to buy a home. I still own that home today. It's paid for free and clear, and we rent out the house. But it was a frustrating process. I didn't know what I didn't know. The paperwork was confusing. I didn't know what the next steps were going to be. And so it was at that moment I entered into the real estate industry, and I wanted to duplicate that fantastic decision in all of my friends and family members and neighbors without the frustrating process. It was as simple as that. And then as I was in the industry, I started learning that nobody ever forgets their last move. The kids remember it. If we multi-generational house, the grandparents remember it. The buyer, seller remember it. Everybody remembers the last move. I remember moving last time, eating pizza on moving boxes. I remember my kids painting their own room, the color they chose. Like, I remember that move. I'm convinced nobody forgets their last move. And so it was from that frustrating experience that I had, and knowing the power and impact that really real estate has on the life of the buyer, seller, and their entire family, we penned these words that we wanted to provide our clients the kind of experience they're excited to tell a friend about. And it was as simple as that. And that became the roots of our organization. It became what we were about. Every decision we make, even today, is compared and contrast to those roots. And it's what we're all about. And
so we want to create the type of experience that people want to tell their friends about. That's what you said?
That's it.
That's
good.
That's
it, Jared. We're now we're almost nearly at 1,000 5-star reviews, and that's 1,000 customers that experienced our team and they wrote about it. They wrote a positive experience, and that's why we exist as an organization. Then you got the trunk and the team and the branches and the fruit and all those things, which begin to start putting these things into alignment. But the roots are imperative to making sure that we continue to stay on course. That's why we come in, to provide our clients the kind of experience they're excited to tell a friend about.
That's so awesome. So when we're talking about team culture or just culture in general, you're our team leader coach. You coach our coaches as far as building a team and what that looks like and what those processes look like. So in particular, this session's a little bit different than what we usually do, talking about culture instead of what are the stages of growth or, how do you pay people and those things. Like, what role do you think team leader and team member play in creating and preserving that team culture overall?
Well, everybody has a role in preserving your culture. Now, I think that your team leader, which are those that I coach within your organization, they must be the culture caster. Like they have to constantly be speaking of culture. In our team, regularly we're speaking about the culture of our organization. It's predefined. In other words, we know exactly what we're trying to accomplish. It's very, very clear and concise. They know the culture tree. If you'd ask any of our team members, hey, what's the mission? What's the values? What are these things all about in our culture? They know them. They know what our wildly important goals are. And I think the team leader has to be the culture caster. Now, in order to do that with any type of integrity, the hard part is you got to live up to those standards yourself.
Right.
You can't tell people to do something that you don't do.
Right. Do as I say, not as I do, that kind of a thing.
It doesn't work. And then conversely, I think the team member is the ambassador of that culture. Like they're carrying it around. In other words, they're wearing it on their chest or on the back of their jacket. Like this is who we are and this is what we represent. And when you get it right, what happens is you get your workplace, your team becomes an enjoyable place to work. Doesn't mean you don't deal with challenges and struggles. And it creates that magnetism or that attraction to your organization. So more and more people want to be a part of it. Our number one recruiting, if you use that term, recruiting tool, isn't our Facebook ads. It's not even our awards with the state or the city or even our reviews. It's our team members. I say, hey, this is where I work. I love it. Why don't you come work with me? And that becomes the number one way we grow our organization. And it's because our team members are great ambassadors of the culture. Our team leaders throughout your organization are great culture casters. They cast that culture. And what I've learned is that I can't speak enough about culture. Even when I get tired of you talked about keynotes that you've given in the past, like you've done them many times. That was the first time they heard it.
Right.
And you might say something in casting this culture that a new team member or an experienced team member, they never even heard before, or they didn't hear it the way that you said it.
I was going to say they hear it in a new way, right?
And so what happens is you as a team leader must be that culture caster. That job you cannot delegate. There's a lot of jobs in the real estate business. We have listing specialists, we have buyer specialists. I have a full ISA concierge. We have all the transaction coordinators. We can delegate a lot of those things. You cannot delegate the culture of your organization. The culture casting of the organization is the team leader.
So knowing that, which is obviously extremely important, what have you seen? I mean, you've grown a large team. You've done this before. Like, what have you found that can eat away and destroy a great team culture?
So, Jared, I'm going to give you 5 of them, and I know we're quick on time. I have found that there are 5. I like metaphors. If you can tell, you know that, because when I share with you, I try to do something that people can remember. To be unclear is to be unkind. So I like to be clear and concise and then give a metaphor where people can remember it. So you got the culture tree. That's what we're building. That's the alignment of everything that matters in your organization. Now we've got 5 termites you got to keep out of it. And if you're not careful, a tornado or hurricane, those all destroy property, all destroy real estate, all destroy trees, but nowhere near at the magnitude at those little tiny microscopic termites that just eat and a little bit at a time. And that's what happens in your organization if you don't keep these 5 termites out. The first termite we always talk about is gossip. This is anytime somebody's talking to somebody else in the organization, especially if they're complaining to somebody who can't do anything about it. So what we say, Jared, is that, hey, compliments can go all around and concerns go up. So find the person that you report to, let them know the concerns.
I love that. Can you say that again for everybody who's watching right now? Compliments go all around.
Compliments go all around.
Concerns, that's a nice way to repackage it.
Concerns go up.
In other words, if you have no way of fixing it, you really don't need to know about it.
It's defined as gossip.
Yeah.
Any level of communication, Jared, that is with somebody who cannot do anything about it, that's gossip.
Yeah.
And so we want to keep the gossip termite out of your tree. Number 2, poor communication. I can tell you leaders do not communicate enough. We need to constantly be communicating the things that matter in your organization. I said it earlier, to be unclear is to be unkind to your team members.
Yeah.
So we communicate regularly, we communicate often. We want to communicate to our team because they're team members, not mushrooms. I never want to leave them in the dark and feed them manure, right? So we want them to grow. We want them to be healthy, and we want to be clear and concise. The next one, Jared, is unresolved conflict. Yeah, and this happens, you think, well, how can there be unresolved conflict? Well, we work with buyers and sellers. The seller wants the highest price. The buyer wants the lowest price. The agent's stuck in the middle. If you're a team, maybe buyer specialist, listing specialist, your in-house lender, there's a potential for unresolved conflict anywhere. And I have found unresolved conflict is kind of like a splinter. If you leave a splinter in, that conflict that's unresolved, it is worse when it gets infected than the actual splinter itself. So what we always say is pull out that splinter. That means resolve the conflict, bandage it, and move on. Because we don't want to have an infection in your organization. The next one, Jared, is a lack of shared purpose. I am convinced great leaders are great simplifiers. Simplify the process. Always, people want to be a part of something that's bigger than themselves. They want to be a part of something that is first class and it's going to benefit not just them and not just their consumer. And they want to change the industry. They want to change their lives. They want to change the lives of others. Let people be a part of something bigger than themselves. The moment in your organization that it becomes all about you, the team leader, or it becomes all about enriching your pocketbook or your bank account, you've lost it. You've got to have something that is bigger than yourself. In other words, it cannot be addition. It's got to be multiplication when you bring people on. And as you start adding more people, it becomes multiplication of those fruit that we talk about, and the results are multiplied. It's not addition. If you're bringing on addition, then you don't need to have people on your organization. Then just be a solo agent. If you want multiplication, or as an old ancient proverb once said, to go fast, you go by yourself. But if you want to go far, you go with others. Nobody succeeds alone in this business. And the fifth one, which I think is critical, is you cannot, especially as a team leader, the fifth termite is you can't sanction incompetence. And you cannot sanction it. And here's, anytime you have somebody in the organization where they are either I can't or I won't, and after a sufficient amount of training, you cannot help them accomplish their job, their objective at a high level, you are sanctioning incompetence.
Yeah.
And you think about a flat tire doesn't just affect that one tire. It affects the performance of the whole vehicle.
Right.
The whole car is impacted because of a flat tire. Just like in your organization, when we as team leaders sanction incompetence in our organization, we sanction it, we allow it to happen. We kind of turn a blind eye, we don't address it, we sanction incompetence. It affects the whole organization. And I'll tell you, those are some of the most difficult conversations you're ever going to have with people that they may show up on time. They may be friendly. You may know them. In real estate, we often hire people we know. And that may be a very difficult conversation to have, but you cannot sanction incompetence. A flat tire doesn't just impact that tire, impacts the whole organization.
So good, man. I mean, honestly, those 5 tips are great relationship advice if you actually break them back down. But look, I want to let everybody know that was some great information. That's a lot of information to unpack for a lot of you. And so what we've decided to do, if you've gone into the breakout sessions, you're going to notice that you don't see anything in regards to this on there. But we have now added a bonus video that Rick was kind enough to do that's a little bit longer than the session that we just did right here, where he's going to go through these points. He goes through a little bit more in depth and has slides as well that you can download that go through these, because I know there was a lot of stuff, and a lot of you are probably watching this and going, are there any slides? Like, I'm feverishly taking notes. So we are putting up right now, if you go there, a bonus session that has the slides, goes a little bit more in depth. And I would tell all of you, as I've mentioned several times, Rick is our team leader coach. And it's a program that a lot of you who want to build a team, that want to go together, that want to go far, that you need to be in a program like that is designed a little bit differently than regular coaching, specific for team leaders on what they need to do to grow. Whether you already have a team, whether you want to grow one, whether you started and you know you didn't do it right, whatever it is, that program is one that you absolutely want to check out. So make sure you get in contact. Click the link in the description here and get in contact with one of our people. Do a consult soon. Rick, I want to say to you, man, Thank you so much. That's so much good information. You're always willing to serve our people and serve this community, and it doesn't go unseen, man. You're known for that there. So I appreciate you so much, man, and I appreciate you being willing to share today.
Hey, Jared, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Check out the bonus video. It will really walk through step by step how people can embed this culture tree into their business and into their team.
You're the man, man, and I'm glad to hear that the smoke's starting to clear there, all right? Thanks so much,
Yeah,
man. Appreciate
me too.
it.
Hey, take care. Thanks, guys.